Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Clarity in Crisis. My name is Angela Gibson, and let us welcome our esteemed guest, Dr. Brown. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. How are you doing?
Thank you. Great. It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure to be here.
That
Happy
is
to
awesome. You went out. Couldn't hear you for a second.
support the cause.
To support the cause of clarity in crisis. Yes, we need clarity in this crisis. And Dr. Brown's extensive experience as a psychotherapist and life coach in private practice for over 20 years is definitely the kind of wisdom that we need during this time. So again, thank you so much. Today we're going to be focused on the topic pivoting on purpose. As I said before, my name is Angela Gibson with eSpeaks, which is the platform, and I'm part of Angie Speaks, which is the page on Facebook. So this idea of pivoting on purpose is a very popular phrase these days. Actually, the word pivot, everybody is using it, but I'm not sure that we all know what it means. So when you think of the phrase pivot on purpose, what it means to me is that I'm paying attention to my environment and I'm making the necessary tweaks and adjustments that I need to make so that I can survive and or thrive. I'm sure there are other more sophisticated definitions, but that's my personal one. How do you define it for yourself, Dr. Brown?
Well, doing a little research, you're right. It has to do with how do we cope in a time of crisis. And that's really, really important thing to think about because some of us don't do well in crisis. Some of us pretend like there's no change. And so we keep on doing the same old, same old. Others of us pay attention to the fact that there is something happening and we should do something about it. And so we give thought to it. And one of the thoughts that we give to it is, how can we make an adjustment to make this thing keep on working for us? So pivoting in crisis for me means, how do we make adjustments so that we can keep on doing what we've been doing?
How do we make adjustments so that we can keep on doing what we've been doing, or make adjustments so that we can change from doing what we were doing? Would that be an accurate assessment as well?
Well, in terms of the literature, they don't consider that part pivoting, because pivoting means you're not trying to the way it's used, you're not trying to significantly change what you're doing. You just want to keep on doing it, just find maybe different ways to do it. But now, the alternative is different from pivoting the way it's used anyway in business.
So in other words, it sounds like pivoting is keeping the same vision, but perhaps finding another way to get to it. So right. It's not plan B, it's a part of the process, more or less, right? So have you thought about any way in which you personally had to pivot during this time? Can you give the audience an example of how you had to pivot? I know for myself. You want me to go first? For myself, I think there are many different areas that require pivoting. You kind of have to look at the whole picture of your life in a pandemic and in a crisis this massive. From remote learning to being a small business owner, there's been a lot of requirement for me to reassess my current lifestyle. So one example is in my business of selling technology to the federal, state, and local government. The city of New York laid off 9,000 people, or should I say furloughed them, 9,000 managers. And so I serve the city of New York, and that's a lot of my client base. So I have had to look for a solution that's specifically COVID-19 related, that's going to help them with working from home securely and securing the large files with, the city transfers back and forth while people are using their home computers and accessing the city's network. And so I've had to consider what would make the city feel compelled to spend, in spite of the fact that budget is a real issue. People are being laid off. So instead of selling all the stuff I typically focus on, I have a very specific focus on this particular solution that's going to enable security specifically for large files that must be transferred, and to give the visibility that the organization needs and to feel secure doing that. So that's one example of how I had to pivot in business. The thing though is that it requires patience, of course, for this to ramp up. But I imagine that it will present more and more opportunities because the city has recently signed this declaration that they need to use it in many of the agencies. So while I don't see the business yet, I see a little bit of it. I know it's going to come in. So that's an example of pivoting. Like, you really have to pay attention to what's happening and make the necessary adjustments. Yeah, but it is definitely painful to be able to be experiencing this, because I'm so used to, the technology business is always happening and bouncing. So, but it's necessary. So how have you had to pivot in your own life?
Well, my pivoting took place when I had to find a different way to deliver service. Generally, I have an office in Manhattan, right off Madison Avenue, and it's quite comfortable. I like the people who I was around, but when COVID hit, one of the things that happened was they said, "Hey, you better take age into consideration." And considering my age, I seriously took it into consideration and started actually to sit down and do some of the things that I intended to talk about before, but to make an assessment of, who I am, what do I have to offer, and decided that, well, I love what I do. I want to be compensated, yes, but I love what I do. I saw a need, and so I decided I would partner up with you and provide services to the community. And essentially what I'm doing is consultations, which you don't have to pay for. And depending on the situation, we figure out what happens next. So my pivoting had to do with doing phone consultations as my main job. And as it turned out, the insurance companies found that most of us just weren't going into the office, so forget it. And so they turned around and now approve phone consultations, where before
they didn't before, but now, because most people, that's great news.
Yeah,
I do remember that being an issue. Wow. And just the fact that we're in a season of pivoting, the whole world is pivoting. The fact that they're willing to entertain the fact that people aren't going out, and they had to find a way to deliver the services and still make sure that you are compensated. I'm really glad to hear that. So I get a picture of what it looks for you from a professional perspective. Are there any other ways in which you had to pivot, or that you'd say to the audience to consider in this current environment?
Well, yes, personally, one of the things that I did was I decided to take a number of online courses to add to my expertise. And one of the things that I've been trying to do for a very long time and wasn't able to do because it was rather expensive was to take up a course on divorce mediation. Now, it's not a thing that most people want to think about, but when it happens, it's important to have somebody who can sit down and help the process be as painless as possible. So I took a course on divorce mediation and a few other things too, you know, basically so using that time to develop myself. And I think that's what other people need to do as well.
Using the time to develop yourself. You know, there's a scripture, I think it's in Ecclesiastes, that says, cast your bread upon the waters, and after many days you may find it again. And there's another one says, I think it says, in the morning, in the evening, don't make your hands be idle. And in the morning, don't be idle either, because you don't know which thing is going to succeed, whether this or that, or whether both will do equally well. And I think that speaks to the need to really be very proactive in our lives so we can lead in our lives. We've been focusing a lot on that this month and part of last month, leading in our lives and really being aware of the areas in our life that needs personal development. And I think that the crisis is causing many of us to reassess what we had been doing and the things that we need to do differently or better so that we are not caught off guard again in the future, scrambling in the middle of some emergency. So you speak about divorce. I mean, the fact that you went ahead and you took a course in divorce mediation. From a relational perspective, are you finding that families are having to pivot because of the crises that is upon us? Do you find that the environment in homes, are you having those kind of conversations with people where things are just so tense? And what advice would you give someone who's in a situation because of the current environment that's suffering or struggling? How would they need to pivot, for example?
Well, okay, the first question, things are, for many people, things weren't that great to begin with. A lot of times people form relationships without even knowing each other very well, or forming relationships based on other than love. And that's even in the Christian community, you know. Unfortunately now, the divorce rate, the rate of battering is not significantly different in the Christian community than in the community at large. So everybody's hurting. Now, pivoting, I would say in that case, we don't need to pivot. We need to stop, okay? We need to pause.
Okay.
And get clarity about what we want and what we need to do to get it. In other words, things don't have to end up in a bad place if both people want to save the relationship. Right. But one person can't carry it alone. It's just too much. And especially when there are children involved, it's my hope that people will want to do everything they can to understand each other and to improve their relationships. Now, divorce, let me tell you, divorce mediation means that those people have come to the conclusion that for whatever reasons, they are not going to live together. Wow. It's not divorce counseling. That's a separate thing, which I do divorce counseling. But divorce mediation is where you're doing legal stuff. And that's where you're separating your assets, deciding who gets what, how, if there are children involved, how is that relationship going to be handled, that kind of thing. So divorce mediation is a legal proceeding.
So it sounds like in the counseling, there's an opportunity to pivot, but in the mediation, it's pretty much over.
Right.
Is that correct?
Well, yes, both have decided this is it, but they're not being nasty to each other. You know, we're talking about mature people who recognize that this isn't going to work. And, you know, sometimes that does happen. I think of a couple that they got together for the wrong reasons. They were good on one level, meaning they were excellent business partners. But, yeah, and they started out from young, you know, from high school, believe it or not, really going after their goal, and they made it. They are multimillionaires at this point. Yes, I do seem to have that touch. I think the Lord gave me that golden touch, okay?
And what touch is that exactly? You have many touches. Which one are you referring to? I can't hear you.
Yes, the Lord gave me the ability to pull things out of people that they never they could do.
And what you pulled out was that they weren't supposed to be together from the beginning. What exactly are you referring to that you pulled out of them?
No, I helped them to reach their goal.
Okay, you helped them to reach a goal.
They had a goal. Their goal was to become a millionaire. It really was their goal.
Okay.
So I was helpful to getting them to reach that place.
Right.
Once they reached that place, they no longer had. It was done.
Relationship was over. Wow. So they came together at such a young age to become millionaires?
Yes. Some people are focused like that. These were very poor people. And from an age, they decided, I don't want to live in the ghetto.
It seems like we have a running theme when you're talking about this every time we get together, not living in the ghetto. That's so funny.
No, listen, the ghetto isn't a place. At least it wasn't nice when I was there. When I was there, I'll tell you what I saw. Now, this is going to date me, okay? But this is the era of cocaine. Okay? I saw young people, even as young as 10 years old, getting high, you know, leaned over, some dying.
Right.
There's nothing good about living in a place where all the things that you need for life are not there. In fact, you know, and we shouldn't be ashamed of leaving the ghetto, okay? Then why?
Not be
Listen,
ashamed of leaving the ghetto. Okay, Dr. Brown, I got it.
we still be there. If you go back in history, you'll find out that the ghetto came initially into being because the rest of the community did not want Jews mixing in with them, okay?
Really?
They wanted their work, but they didn't want them to mix because they had such different values. You know, the whole thing about God and doing the right thing, was too much, you know? So they were the first ghetto people. I don't think you're gonna find a Jew that misses going back to the ghetto, if they can even remember it by now. And
I didn't even know that. I had no idea. You just educated me big time.
I think
the
that was
first in the ghetto. Wow.
Basically the ghetto. What the ghetto is an area that separates a people population from the main group. And when that separation takes place, you don't have a voice. Right. You are just used for whatever it is that people want you for, and then you're cut off. There's nothing good about that.
So in that case, it's not a pivoting either. You just need to stop and leave the ghetto when you get the opportunity.
Out of there as soon as possible.
Just get out. That's what you did, right? I'm out. That's funny. Okay, let me ask this question. So what are some important questions people need to ask themselves if they need, to know whether or not they need to pivot, or if they need to get ready to pivot? What are some questions they need to ask themselves?
So let me say this, the opposite of pivoting in time, again, to reassess who you are, where you are, and what you want out of life. In other words, this is the time for you to reassess. See, some people can't pivot. Like, okay, all those 9,000 people that were let go from their job, they can, at this point, they can still pivot because they have a job to go back to. Apparently, they're only furloughed, okay? But some people have lost their job. They can't go back and fix anything. People have lost their business. They can't go back and fix anything. And then some people may feel that, this pandemic gave, many people have said this to me, this pandemic gave some people the opportunity to reevaluate. It gave them time to sit down and think about who they are, about where they are. They paid attention to what was going on in their children's life, as in the educational system. Right now, people are complaining left and right about what's possible and what's available for their children. And many parents are saying, hey, this is terrible. My kid isn't learning what they're supposed to learn. Well, guess what? That was happening when we were on automatic pilot and didn't have the time to pay attention. Now that they have the time to pay attention, they are reevaluating. Do I want to go back on automatic pilot again? Do I want to neglect my family? Do I want to pay attention to my children and my husband? And if so, that's not a pivot. That is a complete turnaround, okay? So
I have to say personally, I like the fact that my kids are home. I know exactly what's going on. The remote learning, we're very involved, my husband and I. He's working on the other side of the house, and he watches my 6-year-old. I oversee the 12-year-old, he's now 12. And it just makes us feel like a whole family. I mean, not that we weren't before, but it definitely makes a huge difference. I actually am getting to know them much better. We have family activities. We're playing in the backyard, jumping the fat, basketball. I mean, it's really, I know the pandemic is painful. At the same time, I do see some benefit from having had to press pause in the automatic pilot situation that we typically live. So important questions to ask yourselves while exploring alternatives would be, what from your perspective?
Well, who am I? What's important to me? What are my values?
Right.
Is what I'm doing supporting my values? Is it supporting the things that are important to me, or is it taking it away from me? What are my gifts? For myself, I'm a Christian and I follow Christian values. And I believe that there's a God, and I believe that he gave me and everybody else a gift, whether or not you believe in him, doesn't matter. He still gave it to you. From my opinion. So the question is, what are my gifts? Do I need to develop them more in order to be able to use them to help other people and to help myself? How can I use it to benefit other people? What do they need? It's good to have something, but if someone doesn't need it, it doesn't matter, you see? You have to do some work to who needs what I have.
Right.
How can deliver that service to other people and be properly compensated. So these are questions that you would ask yourself to either go work for somebody else who supports the same things that you support, or to work for yourself. And working for yourself is certainly not out. You know, it's a question of what God has for you. And he will open the door. Whether it's working for somebody else permanently, temporarily, while you know, establish your own self. Personally, I think everything should be done to try to figure out something that you can do for yourself. Because you know what? Sooner or later, no matter how good that job is, those people gonna get rid of you when you get old. And so you have something to do. You know, well, I'm telling you the truth.
Get rid of you when you get old. Oh my God. You know, I used to be a part of this program where they say a job just represents just over broke.
And it
they
does.
Pay you enough just to stay there, but you're always scrambling.
No, it's just enough to keep you coming back. And no joke, because when you retire, you get even less. And now you can't go back to that job. So what do they do? They're gonna find some job at the minimum wage and you'll be happy to get it. No, I think you'd be better off do hair, bake cakes, do something.
Pivot. Get it? And leave the ghetto. I got that message. You're so funny. But also from another experience I had during this pandemic that really wasn't intentional. I wasn't intending, but it just kind of became apparent. What I find is that when you take the opportunities that are presented to you and you run with them, more opportunities seem to open up. So you may have a situation, for example, right now in your life where you feel like you have no open door, everything looks really bleak and you're bewildered, but there is more than likely is an opportunity that you're overlooking, that you're not thinking is worth, considering. With me, it's my platform, Eve Speaks. I started that platform about 4 years ago because I realized I needed personal development to help me to combat the anxiety with public speaking. It was really done from my own personal journey. It wasn't supposed to be a business or necessarily. My phone is talking to me, please forgive me. However, because I have an IT business already, I figured I'd get a virtual assistant just to help me to work on Eve Speaks. And in doing that, in me working on my own personal development, wanting to overcome the anxiety in speaking because I blacked out when I tried to give a speech in 2016, it became clear that other people also need virtual assistant services. So I hired virtual assistants to help me with my business. But in doing so, discovered that other people needed the same service. So now I pivoted the Eve Speaks platform and developed a separate area called EVA, Eve Speaks Virtual Assistant Services. And people actually are asking to be helped with their social media management, project management, all kinds of clerical administrative tasks that I'm not doing for them, but I have a team that used to help me that I can now say, we'll charge you a fractional fee and this team of mine will help you. I wasn't planning to do that when I started Eve Speaks, but again, when you are after personal growth and development, you will find ways to pivot. It will present itself so that you can continue to grow. And it may not happen fast, but you will see the opportunities will start to come. And that's exactly what I'm experiencing right now with EVA, which is the subdivision of Eve Speaks, which is to help small business owners who are usually overwhelmed, stranded, feeling like they don't have the resources, that can now call up my team and say, can you help me with my social media management? Can you help me to put a business plan together? Can you help me to do this project management or manage a webinar for me? I never thought I'd be doing that service. It's not in line with my main business at all. So it's just so important, I think, that if people are present in their lives, they will see opportunities to pivot because the opportunities are there. It's just that we tend to be looking at in a certain area and we only think that area is how we can make a difference or change or become, but it's not true. It comes from sometimes the most unlikely places. So I like these questions that you say we have to ask ourselves when exploring alternatives or opportunities to pivot. Who am I? What are my gifts? Who can benefit from them? That was the question I asked myself with the EVA platform. Who can benefit from what I needed help with, which was to help me with my need to get extra help for administrative tasks. The other question is, what do they need? They needed what I needed, which is someone or a group of people to operate as an extension of their team so that they can continue with the main task or the main service that they offer. And then the last question you said is, how can I best deliver the service and be compensated? And for me, that means partnerships with another country where people are willing to, who rates are not that high, and I can offer the service here in the United States. So this need to pivot requires you just sometimes just take a self-assessment. Is that what would you agree with that? That's what you're saying?
Absolutely, and I think that's a great idea. And in terms of following the same thing, you know, I was offering the forgiveness groups, and I initially started with only a limited session, but I find that people really, really benefit from it. And so now it's not only just forgiveness. Okay, after we forgive that person or that situation, the next thing is, how can we move on with our life and be successful in whatever area we want to be successful in? And so now that's the part 2 of the forgiveness group, learning to forgive, and then going on to
growing, because that's the whole point, right? To heal, aspire, and grow. So you forgive, then okay, what can you do next? Aspire, which is be successful, pivot, do whatever you need to do, and continue to grow. That's some great tips there. Is there anything else that you think the audience would need to know as they listen to the replay about this whole idea of pivoting on purpose? I need to say that it must be done on purpose. Sometimes it happens accidentally, but you have to be deliberate, dogged, and determined to make the change in your life. Otherwise, you're going to find that you're in the back scrambling and you don't know what to do next. So you have to be very present for your life. So that's all we have to share with you today. As Dr. Brown said, she can, she's offering forgiveness groups, and now she's also, as a part of the next phase of that service, which is being offered free only through the Eve Speaks platform, is to help you to start aspiring so that you can grow and pivot on purpose. Here at Eve Speaks, or Angie Speaks, we are very determined to become the next best version of ourselves. So reach out to Dr. Brown on Instagram at Dr_mom. Is that it? Dr_mom. And you can reach me at Angie Speaks on Facebook, or Angie Speaks Stronger Than Splinters in my Facebook group. Also on Instagram, I can be reached at Angela's Gibson Speaks. So we look forward to hearing from you, and maybe we can help you to pivot in one or more areas of your life. Again, the bedrock of our platform is for you to heal, aspire, and grow. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown, for this time. I appreciate it. And until next time, I hope you are growing during this period and pivoting on purpose. Bye-bye. Good evening.